To welcome you to the How to Be a Peer Reviewer webinar presented today by Sage Publishing. Today's presentation will be split into two parts. In the first part, we'll hear from a few of my colleagues at Sage about how to be an effective peer reviewer, and they'll walk us through the peer review process from start to finish. After that, we'll be followed by a Q&A session, a question and answer session, where we'll be joined by journal editors, managing editors who will field your questions about peer review. And to prepare for this, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. If you like, that will be the Q&A function that's available at the bottom of your screen. If you find any that you find particularly important, please feel free to like it, to upvote it. We'll run through the questions during the webinar, the Q&A section of the webinar, beginning with those that have the most likes and most upvotes. So if you find any in particular that you like, please do like them there. So to begin, I'd like to present you to our panelists. First, we have Priyanka Katyal, who has been with Sage for more than 3 years. Academically, she has a bachelor's in dentistry with specialization in oral medicine and radiology. Prior to joining the publishing industry, Priyanka was practicing as a dentist in different government and private hospitals. She's also worked extensively in oral mucosal lesions during her tenure in post-graduation. As an associate managing editor, she has also been an experienced editor involved in critically reviewing manuscripts submitted to various OA titles in the role of decision-making editor. In her current role, she works closely with authors on their manuscripts and helps them navigate the editorial process. In addition to helping with editorial processes, Priyanka continues to mentor and impart process training to editors who join the team of Sage's India division. Next, Sonal Katyal joined the OA editorial team as an assistant managing editor in May of 2021. In her current role as assistant managing editor, she is performing various editorial duties in different OA titles, including managing peer review. By training, Sonal has a postgraduate in dentistry from the ITS Center for Dental Studies and Research in Ghaziabad. As a senior research fellow for 3 years with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, she worked on a project to build capacity and strengthen the control of hospital infection to detect and prevent antimicrobial resistance in India. She has also worked extensively in oral squamous cell carcinoma project funded by the Indian Council of Medical Research from New Delhi for more than 4 years. And previously, Sonal was an assistant editor with the Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research. Sonal is presently based in Delhi. Dr. Ashima Sinha is the senior assistant managing editor with the GSD OA team at Sage, housed in the New Delhi office. Dr. Sinha academically holds a doctorate degree in biotechnology with more than 12 years of research experience. During her PhD, Ashima looked at the development of a biomarker in Parkinson's disease. She also holds 7 years of postdoctoral experience and has successfully managed to earn and run a women scientist project funded from the Department of Science and Technology in New Delhi. During her research career, she has published many articles in internationally acclaimed high-impact factor journals. Prior to joining Sage, she also had brief stints with the Indian Journal of Medical Research in Delhi, managing the editorial peer review process. She joined Sage in 2019 and is currently managing 6 OA titles, where she handles all the editorial and decisional tasks. She is the publishing editor for the Sage Open Medicine and deals with journal management, queries, and decisions on it independently. We're also joined by Vanita Namdeo-Gavai, who has been with Sage for more than 5 years. She joined the Peer Review Global Services Division as a peer review associate in February of 2018. She was then promoted as the Senior Peer Review Associate in 2020 and is currently working in the capacity as a peer review supervisor for traditional journals and the reviewer selection groups in 2022. She's currently overseeing a team of 10 members in the peer review process of Sage journals from manuscript submission through export to Sage production. Her team has expertise and hands-on experience with reviewer selection work on both HSS and STM journals. Vanita is leading a few global projects for her team. Her educational qualifications include a master's in business administration and finance and marketing. And Vanita is based in Dehradun. And last, I'm Sean Scarsbrick, and I'll be moderating the first half of the webinar today. I'm a marketing manager on the author marketing team based out of New York. I hold a BA from Manhattan College in History and an MA in History from Hunter College. I'm very passionate about helping reviewers, especially those in the early stages of their career, to navigate the peer review process with ease and expertise. I'd like to start today with a definition of what peer review is. Peer review is a process where scientists or peers evaluate the quality of other scientists' work. By doing this, the goal is to ensure that the work is rigorous, coherent, uses past research, and adds to what is already known. The process of peer review is an integral part of publishing one's research and is absolutely essential to ensuring the quality of research published and added to the research record. And now I'll pass this over to Simone.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Sean, for the wonderful introduction. So besides the benefits the peer review process has for each publication, there are also significant benefits for the peer reviewer. The most significant is the service a peer reviewer provides to their respective field. So each time someone peer reviews, they are directly helping to improve the quality of the article, offering the authors new insights into their research methods and results. Also, giving the opinions of fellow experts in the field that can provide support and further insight. So it is also a way to keep up with new directions in the field and could be a gateway to an editorial position. Additionally, there are benefits to reviewing and ways in which a reviewer can receive recognition. So this includes recognition via Web of Science or ORCID, where a reviewer can keep a record of publications and show which journals they review for. Also, recognition can be shown with reviewer certificates and displayed as professional development experience on a CV. So Sage Publishing also offers some additional benefits to reviewers in recognition for their service. These include 25% discount on Sage books and free access to ebooks products and Sage journals for about 60 days. So more information on these benefits can be found at the reviewer reward link listed on the slide. So yeah, here I would like to spend a moment sharing with you what the overall peer review process looks like and highlight the core role peer reviewers have. So after a paper is submitted, it is checked for compliance with the journal guidelines. Like it is checked for the things such as correct formatting and if it is fit with the journal's aims and scope. So if this manuscript passes these checks, it is sent to peer reviewer. In most cases, peer reviewers are matched to a paper based on keywords provided in the paper to keywords provided by the reviewer if they have created a reviewer account, or to the keywords in articles the reviewer has authored. So these reviewers are invited to review, and once they accept the invitation, they will have access to the papers in their reviewer center in our peer review system, which we call Sage Track. So once reviewers have assessed the paper and prepared comments for the editor and authors, they then make a recommendation of either revision, reject, or accept to the editor in the system. So the editor can then make a final decision based on the recommendations from reviewers. So there are several times when it is best to decline an invitation to review. One of them is when the reviewer does not have the expertise to review the article. So this can happen if they got matched with the wrong article because the journal did not have the right keywords for them. If a journal suspects this was the case, they should be notified about why an article was outside of the reviewer's expertise when the reviewer declines the invitation to review. Also, reviewer should let the journal know if a reviewer is still working towards their degree in a particular field and is not yet ready to review the articles in that field. So another time a reviewer might decline to review is when they do not have the time and they cannot commit to a specific extension. However, if the reviewer has a specific extension that they could stick to, it is worth letting the editor know before declining. So lastly, I would say you should decline to review if you have a personal conflict of interest, which is really very important. If you have a personal conflict of interest with the research or the authors that would prevent you from delivering an impartial review. Examples include if you have some financial stake in the research, you expect you may cite or reuse much of the content in the article in an upcoming publication because it is of a very similar topic to your own research. So it is also important to not simply reject an article because you know the content really well and feel that you may have a conflict of interest. If you feel that there could be a potential conflict of interest or you feel uncomfortable providing a review because you're too close to the topic or you feel you may be tempted to use or cite the research in the article before it is published, so in that case, let the editor know. The editor will decide how to handle the situation. So this ties into the larger issue of reviewer ethics, which we cover on the next slide. So to start, many journals use double anonymized peer review. This means the authors do not know who the reviewers are and the reviewers do not know who the authors are. This is known as double anonymized peer review system. So this helps the journal ensure that the authors are not getting an unfair advantage or disadvantage for that matter because of who they are. And the reviewers are comfortable providing candid reviews. So if the reviewer learns of the author's identities at some place when reviewing for a double anonymized journal, for example, if the manuscript was not fully anonymized, then the reviewer should let the editor know right away. Definitely mention if learning the author's identities raises a particular conflict of interest for the reviewer. The reviewer should also let the editor know if they have some connection to the study that impacts study participants, like their privacy. For example, if they know someone involved in the clinical trial under review. So the reviewer will have access to unpublished research, and it is important to keep the content of that research confidential. The only exception is if the reviewer is working on a collaborative review with a colleague, which is something they should ask the editor about before they agree to review. Lastly, reviewers recommended by authors are generally not allowed by SAGE journals. There are few exceptions though. The reason this policy is in place is to primarily minimize the risk to SAGE, to the editor, to society partners, and to project SAGE journals and their reputations. So in cases where a journal still uses recommended reviewers, there is only one recommended reviewer allowed per paper. An author recommendation should be submitted through the journal's peer review site under the recommended reviewer step and not directly recommended to the editor. So a recommended reviewer should only be contacted by the editor to be invited to review, not the author. May I now request Dr. Priyanka to please take up further?
Yeah, thank you, Sonal. So next, we are going to talk about the evaluation criteria a reviewer should keep in mind when reviewing an article. So at SAGE, the phrase used is research done well. This is basically to describe the bar for publication. So what does this research done well mean? It is a broad topic, which includes certain key principles, or we can say evaluation criteria in a manuscript, such as defining the research question, the literature review, the research design, data collection, data analysis, ethical considerations. In a nutshell, we can say the research and publication ethics. The specifics will vary between fields, but here is how it is explained to the journal editors. SAGE is looking for discrete, coherent contributions to the academic record that have sufficient methodological rigor to serve as sound building blocks for future research. Now, we'll talk about how to identify research done well in next few slides. Now, here I'll be discussing about the first impression when a reviewer sees the manuscript, what all things a reviewer sees in a manuscript. So when a reviewer is evaluating a manuscript, there are some characteristics of the writing and structure that they may notice immediately. First is the academic writing style. Now, in academic writing style, there are certain points that need to be remembered. Whether the authors have written in a consistent person and tense that was appropriate for their field, that should be taken care of. Whether they were as specific as possible and avoided generalization. Then reviewers should also see whether the authors have avoided colloquialisms. Now, colloquialisms are informal, everyday expressions that may not be suitable for professional or academic writing. So to avoid that, the academic writing style should be done in a way by using formal vocabulary. And whether they avoided the regional or discipline specific jargon. So all these things should be kept in mind when assessing the academic writing style. Next, we come on to the language quality. Now, though the journal is not looking for a reviewer to copy edit, general comments on language quality are appreciated. Now, some aspects to consider in the language quality are, like I said, the colloquial language should be avoided. So in that case, active voice over passive voice should be used. There should be concise language. The article should be formatted in a simpler sentence construction. The correct article use should be there, and singular or plural agreement of verbs and nouns should be there. Again, the reviewer doesn't need to copy edit, but if during reviewing they encounter enough issues to make the article difficult, then please, it is the responsibility of the reviewers to let the journal editor know. Also, it is important to consider whether or not the language problems are severe or they can be fixed during copy editing or during the production stages. Third is the cohesiveness. So editors should know if the reviewer is having trouble following the article because it lacks cohesiveness. Now, some specific concerns in that include is the organization and overall flow of the manuscript. So as and when reviewer starts reviewing the manuscripts, he should see for the cohesiveness of the article. By cohesiveness, it means that it should follow the proper, correct manuscript sequence, and that too according to the nature of the study and the guidelines set according to it. There should be balanced use of tools like transitions and parallel construction. Then in cohesiveness, there should be clear stated research questions and findings and an absence of extraneous material. And lastly, there should be correct use of headers. Like I said, there should be correct headings used as per the nature of the studies and the guidelines set. Lastly, the bias-free inclusive language. The journal do expect bias-free and inclusive language that is definitely appropriate for a global audience. So authors should take care when writing about the gender, age, disability, neurodiversity, or we can say race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, socio-economic status, and religion. So all of these are radical issues which the authors should definitely take care in writing the research, and reviewers should also take care while providing the feedback. They should be sensitive to labels and they should be appropriately specific. Reviewers should keep in mind then that people can have many identities, and one shared identity does not necessarily mean shared experiences. Also, it is worth stating here that bias-free inclusive research goes beyond word choice and extends to the assumptions made by the researchers and the intention and design of the study, such as sampling. So if the reviewers has concerns with any of this, it should be noted in the review. Next, I'm going to talk about the overall structure. Now, in the overall structure, first is the reporting guidelines. The reporting guidelines exist for many study types. Like I said before, there are different study types, and for different study types, there are different guidelines set. So it should be followed by authors when preparing an article, and reviewers should also see those reporting guidelines when reviewing the manuscript. Now, the reviewer can ask the editor if they are unsure of whether the journal follows specific reporting guidelines, because not all journals require them. Also, a good resource on reporting guidelines by the study type is available on the Equator Network website. Secondly, a clear contribution to the field. Yes, depending on the journal, it might not be a requirement that all articles make significant or especially a novel contribution to the field. So it may not happen that every time the reviewers or authors will provide us with the novelty in the research. However, at minimum, the journal does expect it to be clear what the contribution of the research is, because it is difficult for future research to build on a study that lacks clear findings and limitations. Next, we expect research to have appropriate ties to the literature. If a reviewer notices material that is missing from the literature review and would give necessary context to the study, please let the editor know. For literature reviews and the discussion sections, only suggest your own articles or colleagues' articles if you have a definite, legitimate reason for recommending them, and state this clearly to the authors. Alternatively, what you can do is you can simply suggest to the authors that they need to update the literature with the more relevant or more recent articles. It is also good to consider the global literature and expanding the horizons beyond the existing literature which is referenced in the article to elevate the discussion or the analysis. Lastly, I would talk about the figure legends. A common critique that journal appreciates are issues with the figure legends. So a reviewer should be able to easily read any figures. If the reviewer has trouble, then the authors should know to make corrections. I'll now hand over to Ashima to please carry on for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Sonal. In this slide, I would like to talk about the ethics. In the previous slide, we talked about the ethics, the reviewer concerning ethics. So in this slide, we are talking about the ethical guidelines which the authors should follow when they perform their study or while they are writing an article. So a reviewer should feel free to ask the authors any questions related in their review, which are related to these ethical issues, and let the journal editor know if they have any concerns with the research ethics of the articles which they are reviewing. The first point is that the reviewers should feel free to ask more in detail about the informed consent. How was the informed consent taken? Whether it was a written informed consent or a verbal informed consent, and was this mode of consent approved by the ethics reviewing committee? And the next question the reviewer can put forward regarding the ethical issues is who gave the ethics approval? What was the ethics approval number? Was the study waived for ethics approval by the institutional review board? All these details can be asked by the reviewer while going through the manuscript. And next is if the reviewer has any concerns about the privacy of the study participants, then also the reviewer is free to ask any concerns about about the privacy concerns about the study participants, and the reviewer can anytime let the journal editor know about this. And this question is specifically important for all the online and the open access journals, because they have a much wider reach as compared to the printed and the paywall journals. Lastly, I would say the research, the reviewers should let the editors know if they suspect any data or image manipulation in the manuscript while going through the study. They can, for examples of such cases can be a p-value which is too perfect, or a standard error bar which is too consistent. Such data manipulation can be reported in the review report. Or if there are any images, for example, there are protein images, there are Western blot images. If the reviewer feels that something is lacking, the reviewer is always should always feel free to ask for the raw data from the authors, and let the editors know that a raw data in such case is needed to get a closer look on such kind of Western blot images. Next, the reviewers may also have concerns about the materials which are used in the study. For example, many a times they might have issues that contaminated or incorrect cell lines have been used, or perhaps the reviewers see that the results seem to be very inconceivable, or they are very good to be really true. So such concerns should be raised by the editor. So coming to the next slide, here, when it comes to look at the methods and the data analysis section, it was advisable that the reviewer takes a deeper look into the method section, and there are a number of items which are needed to be focused on by the reviewer while taking into account the methodology section. The first is the reviewer should see if there are any flaws in the study design, and they should are there any clear concerns in the way in which the study was conducted. Such concerns need to be raised by the reviewer. The reviewer should also see, is the study design consistent with the similar studies in the field, and do the results and the conclusions seem appropriate given the kind of the study which has been conducted. The reviewer should also mention in their report if the material method section is descriptive enough so that the study can be reproduced. Likewise, some other comments are which the reviewer should take into consideration are that are the statistical techniques relevant to the study or not? Are they the standard way in which a kind of study should be carried out? Also, the reviewer can notify that are the methods and the materials which are used for the study appropriate for the research question. So all these points should be highlighted while reviewing the paper. Next, this slide shows the results. What all key points need to be considered when a reviewer is going through the results in the discussion section. So many questions raised in analyzing the materials and method section flow, and all these questions mainly flow over the results discussion and the conclusion sections. So the common questions which a reviewer needs to include while reviewing these results section are that if the results are presented in the best way, so as to emphasize the findings, are more tables or figures have been used by the authors to best portray their results. So are these sections free of unsupported generalizations or assumptions? This thing also needs to be taken care of by the reviewer while going through the manuscript, these sections of the manuscript. And are the conclusions appropriate for the study? So also while going through the limitation section, if the reviewer should also point out if there are no limitations listed by the author. So because every study has its own limitations, so it is required that the author puts their limitations in properly in under a separate header of limitations. So the reviewer, while reviewing such sections, need to look if the appropriate limitations or the directions for the future research have been listed in the manuscript or not. And if they are not, then they should surely point this out in their feedback comments. Lastly, I would say that the reviewers should consider the big picture questions. And by this, I means that they should see did the study accomplish what it is set out to do? Did the authors follow their original hypothesis or not? Did they follow their own methods, or does this follow through to the stated conclusions? And one most important thing which the reviewers need to understand and which the reviewers need to remember is that not all the studies, they yield positive results. There are certain studies which yield negative results or null results. So it's advisable that the reviewer just does not jumps onto conclusions of rejecting the paper outrightly because it has it has negative conclusion or it has negative results. So it is more advisable not to recommend or reject for a paper because it didn't yield any positive results. And as you can see that there are a lot of things which need to be taken care of while reviewing an article. So it is best required by the reviewer to just break down the review into particular sections: introduction, then methodology, then results, discussion, limitations of future research, and then taking a deep glance into each and every section and providing their feedbacks on each and every section. Because just structuring out their review will help the editors as well as the authors to understand how they can upgrade their paper, and it will help publishing good quality papers through their feedbacks. Yeah, I would like to hand over Priyanka to further continue with the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashima. I'll now discuss about the elements of a good reviewer report. Till now, we have read what a reviewer looks into the manuscript. I'll now discuss how a reviewer report is made and what are the basic elements in a good reviewer report. So the first element is the turnaround time that is short. So reviewers, when they agree to review the revision, till they submit the revision, there is a certain time frame. So the reviewers should follow that turnaround time and should submit their review within that specified time only. Reason being, returning the review promptly significantly reduces the time to first decision which is made in that article and which affects one of the KPIs, that is time to first decision of that journal. Secondly, second element is good assessment of the quality of the science, data, and the images. So by science, data, and images, I mean that the reviewer should have a thorough assessment of the content, which is the introduction, the literature, which is discussion, statistical analysis, results section, that is in the form of tables and figures, and conclusion. Thirdly, a review report should be written so that it is easy to read and understand. As explained previously, it should be written in a way of an academic writing style. After that, a good review report should have substantial comments presented in a logical order. Now, reviewer will ask what are the different ways of providing the review feedback. So there are different ways in which a reviewer can provide the feedback. So they can provide in the form of the bullet points, they can provide in the form of paragraphs or section wise according to introduction, materials, methods, statistical analysis, discussion likewise, or they can align their feedback as major issues or minor issues. So it is totally up to the reviewers. Next element is a good review report should provide an overview of paper's suitability for publication. Definitely, review report should discuss whether it has got relevance to the journal focus. It should comment on the originality and the quality of the research. After that, it should definitely specify edits if at all are needed. So by edits, I mean in the form of language style, in the form of English editing, in the form of minor comments such as abbreviations, or if the reviewer want authors to edit disclosures at the end of the manuscript, so likewise. After that, a good review report should highlight the strong points also, along with the weaker points in the manuscript. It's not always the negative, I could say. It's not always the feedback. So feedback should be constructive in a way that it should be appraised also. So reviewers need to mention the constructive feedback, highlighting what is done well and which areas need improvement. And lastly, if a reviewer finds that the manuscript is great and looks good or ready to be accepted, then please do not say that in the review report. So include the reasons why the manuscript is good. Focus on what about the methods or the results or conclusions, they are good. And what about the overall quality of the manuscript that makes it good to accept. Now, I'll be talking about the content of the good review report earlier, the elements of the good review report. Now we'll talk about the content. Now, a good review report plays a crucial role in the peer review process of academic journals. Why? Because it helps the editors make informed decisions about whether to accept the article, revise the article in the form of major decision, minor decision, or reject a submitted manuscript. So there are certain points to note, and that are, first, the tone of a review. Now, the tone of a review should be helpful, should be positive, should be constructive. Always keep in mind that reviewers may be non-native English speakers also. So a review should be clear and specific. The reviewers should avoid strong punctuation like exclamation points or words in all caps, because they don't need to be, because what does this do is this makes the review appear aggressive and intense sometimes. Review comments are seen by both editors as well as the authors. So reviewers should take care of the word choosing and the phrasing. Also, to be invited again by an editor, writing a well thought review goes a long way. Secondly, comments to the authors which the reviewers give can be organized as major and minor comments. Now, what are the differences between major and minor comments? The major comments are generally, they are the suggestions or questions for the authors that will require additional experimentation or significant amount of rewriting, we can say. Whereas the minor comments are generally simple questions or suggestions that can be addressed quickly, keeping in mind the question of whether or not the manuscript is readable and is something that can later be fixed with copy editing. So that also comes under minor revision. After that, there is also the option to send separate comments to the editor. So when a reviewer is providing the feedback, so there are two boxes, comments to the editor and comments to the author. Now, comments to the editor are confidential. So it is advisable for the reviewers to take advantage of the separate comments to the editor so as to give a more candid or high level feedback. For example, comments around scope or appropriateness of the study questions, they should be there in the comments to editor box. You may be tempted to make a judgment on the scope of the journal, but then this is at the discretion of the editor only, and this has already been taken care of. So you need to focus that. If at all you're finding still that the article is not in scope of the journal, please do let the editor know. So this type of comment is more appropriate for the editors and not the authors. Now, things what to avoid in a review report. There are certain things that we should avoid in a review report. First is the lack of details. By lack of details, I can give you an example as if the reviewer does not provide substantial comments in either the comments to the editor box or comments to the author box. After that, if there is no justification of decision recommendation. For example, if a major or reject option is chosen, but a proper justification with the feedback is not given, so that should be avoided. After that, a recommendation that doesn't match the comment. Sometimes what happens is reviewers give reject, but under the comments to authors, the comments which are given are major critical comments which are actionable. And sometimes on the contrary, they give minor decision with critical comments towards rejection. So make sure your recommendation match with what comments that you are giving. After that, descriptive with no evaluation of the comment. Yes, the feedback should focus on content of the manuscript also and the various subsections. Likewise, I said, if you want to make comments on various subsections, you can do as per the introduction, materials, statistical analysis, and the conclusion it draws. Reviewers should ask the authors to cite the reviewer's paper. Yes, they can do that, but if they are not giving justification, they should avoid it, because reviewers should provide proper justification as to why citing their papers would enhance the manuscript. And lastly, I would say the negative or aggressive tone should be avoided. I'll now hand over to Ashima to please carry on with further presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka. Now that you have been well versed about how to review a paper, what all components need to be taken care of, what are the good elements of a review report, what should be avoided. Next, we are going to talk about how to volunteer to be a reviewer. So if the reviewer knows that in the upcoming slides, we'll talk about how can one pick up a paper to review, or how can one be a reviewer. So the slide here shows that there are two major ways a reviewer can start the journey of becoming a volunteer reviewer. The first one is that the reviewer can create an account in the journal's peer review site, and it is advisable that a regularly checked email address is used to create an account on the journal site. And also it will be best if an institutional email address is used. So an institutional email address helps verifying the editors, the reviewers. It helps in identifying and verifying the reviewers, the institutional address. So next, the reviewers can also create an ORCID ID, or they can add an ORCID profile, which including all their affiliations, their full affiliations, so that by seeing the ORCID ID, one can get an information about the expertise of the reviewer. So specific degree or degrees should also be included, and the reviewer should choose appropriate salutation while creating an account in the journal website. Also, it is advisable to use strong keywords which best illustrate their research expertise. So examples of good keywords and to avoid, and which keywords to avoid is there in the right hand side of the slide. So the good keywords are generally those which are descriptive, but they are not too descriptive. They describe about the expertise or the work area in which the reviewer is working. So yeah, good keywords should be generally those which are descriptive, but not too descriptive. The second way in which by which a reviewer can really volunteer to be a good reviewer, can become a volunteer reviewer, is by connecting to the editors directly. This way, in here, the reviewer can reach out to the editors directly via the emails. Many editors have their email address on the journal website, so the reviewer can directly email the concerned editor through this email address, or they can also go and create a Web of Science account. This is also advisable, that a Web of Science account is also created for those who want to become a volunteer reviewer. Next here, I'm going to talk about joint reviews. Now, joint reviews, I would say, as the name suggests, is a review which is done in collaboration with another reviewer. Such cases, they appear for early career researchers or junior researchers, or we can say PhD students, postdoctoral fellows who have not started their reviewing career. So they can be conducted with their mentors or supervisors. But the key element which I'll focus here is that reach out to the editor. In any case, if a junior researcher gets an invitation to review a particular manuscript, so it is advisable to reach out the editor before conducting the review on that paper, because the decision lies on, for the joint review, the decision lies on the editor. So at the editorial discretion only, a joint review can be conducted. So there are cases in which a reviewer, if a reviewer has been invited to provide a review, and she is not having enough time to review the paper, and they just hands off the task to their junior colleagues, so to provide a review on their behalf. So in such cases also, it is required to let the journal editor know, and the editor will decide how to proceed further with such cases. But the idea behind doing so is that it is ensured that the reviewers, they receive credit for their work done. So yeah, this way the joint reviews can be conducted. Over to you, Sonal. You're on mute, Sonal.
Yeah, thanks, Ashima. So by now, I'm sure everyone has this thing in mind, like how to conduct the review, and if we could get some training course or video guide. So therefore, for those who want to learn more about how to conduct a peer review and put together an effective reviewer report, SAGE offers a number of resources in the SAGE's Journal Reviewer Gateway. So there's this how to review articles page there is a downloadable reviewer's guide on how to conduct a peer review video, offer guidance on the elements of a peer review and how to assess a manuscript. So SAGE also partners with the Web of Science and recommends their Web of Science Academy, which is linked in to the reviewer gateway. The Academy is a free of charge formal training course providing researchers with the skills, connections, and experience required to become an expert reviewer. They have learning modules, practical experience, writing reviews, feedbacks on reviews, and they also offer certificate and badge on a reviewer's Web of Science profile upon completion of the course. Yeah, for those who would like to learn even more about peer review, SAGE offers a number of additional resources on the SAGE Journal Reviewer Gateway. Reviewers will find a video on how to become a peer reviewer, as well as a peer review ethics video with information about ethics and reviewer responsibilities. So reviewers can also visit the Committee of Publication Ethics or COPE website to read their suggested best practices for peer reviewing, which is also called COPE Ethical Guidelines. It's a great way to learn is to see examples of peer reviews. Some journals such as Therapeutic Advances in Respiratory Diseases, they follow this open peer review model where the author can see the comments made by reviewers for a particular article. So reviewers can also look at comments made on the preprint articles on many preprint servers. Again, to gain even more experience reviewing, a reviewer may consider Web of Science Academy training course, which provides in-depth training. So lastly, we would like to thank reviewers for taking the time to support fellow researchers. We agree that reviewing is a critical process and reviewers help to protect the integrity of the academic record, elevate the quality of the review, work they review, and challenge their peers to higher standards of research and scholarly communication. So thank you very much. Over to Sean.
Thank you all so much. So before we go on to the Q&A section, I wanted to flag that at SAGE, we have a dedicated gateway that houses all of our resources, which Sunil just covered. So if you have any questions about where to begin, please do start there. So now I'll be passing it over to my colleague, Vanita, to hand over on to the Q&A portion of this webinar.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for popping up your questions. So we'll be taking up a few to answer. So I think let's start with the first one that's, I think most of us are actually thinking about. What level of qualification is expected to become a reviewer? So can a researcher sign up to be a peer reviewer without having prior publication from that particular journal?
So thank you for putting this up. So I was expecting this question. So first of all, please be mindful that reviewers are invited not based on the degrees they have, but the expertise in their research field. So some journals have this option for graduate students to act as reviewers in training. So their supervisor will need to complete a form to evaluate their work, and you can go to the journal. Each and every journal has their own information, so you can visit their page and be a reviewer. Yeah. Also, I would like to emphasize on try to engage in joint reviewers with your mentor and supervisors. That will suffice the purpose. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. We have another question, and it is, there are, I think, related questions as well. So I'll just pop it up. It is on, I would like to know how to become a reviewer for a specific journal. Should I contact the editor and send him my CV? Can PhD students review? And there were another related question on early career researchers as well.
Thank you, Vinita. I'll answer that question. That is, I think, the most common question that we were expecting again. So how to become a reviewer for a specific journal? So if you want to be a reviewer for a journal, I would recommend, please go to that journal website, contact the editor. If you want to be a peer reviewer, please register yourself in the Web of Science. There are a lot of journals and there are a lot of research which is going on. So some way the editors will find you if you are on the Web of Science. Another thing is, yes, you should contact the editor and write an email to the editor, and they will definitely contact you for the peer reviewing, for the preferred review, for the editorial board member likewise. Yes, PhD students can review, even the graduates can review, PhD students can review, but then they need to review initially by jointly reviewing with their supervisors, like Sonal said. So you have to first jointly review in a way that supervisor will assess your work and complete a form. Another question was, what about the early career researcher? Again, early career researchers are those who do not have much their publication record, but yes, they still can review because everyone has to start someday. Okay, so early career researcher, for the answer for early career researcher is that again, they have to first jointly review with the supervisors, and once they gain confidence, they can then review independently. But yes, you need to focus on different aspects. You need to register yourself in Web of Science also so that you gain credits. I hope I have answered.
Thank you, Priyanka. So with the AI in trend, one question was related to it. Is it ethically acceptable for reviewers to use AI tools to improve the readability of comments offered to the authors?
Yeah, thanks, Sunita. I would like to take over this question. A very nice question and related to the present scenario where everything is with AI and artificial intelligence, and the chatbot tool which is there in picture. So it's a discussion going around. Will this? I mean, how will it affect the publishing services and the reviewing process? So yeah, I won't say that it is unethical because it's an AI tool, and this artificial intelligence tool will help. Can be used the way it is used is it is taken up by the user. That's the most important thing, because if a reviewer takes up this AI tool to, there are non-native reviewers also, non-native English speaking reviewers, so they can use up this AI tool to make their comments more readable in English, or they can improve their comments using this. But I would say that the original idea of the reviewer comments should come from the reviewer. This is also applied to the authors as well. The original idea of the study should come out from the authors, and it should not be AI driven or any kind of this any AI tool driven. So yeah, I would emphasize the originality.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of our speakers today. I want to thank Sonal, Priyanka, and Ashma for all of your assistance, and then Vanita for leading the Q&A section of this webinar. Overall, I hope that this webinar was helpful for you as registrants to learn a little bit about how to get started in doing peer review, how to do it effectively. Want to thank everybody for all of your questions today, and know that we will follow up with you after the recording for anything that you had raised. I also wanted to flag some upcoming webinars that are happening at Sage that may be of interest to you. So we have our How to Do Research and Get Published webinar series. It's a monthly series all about learning about conducting research and getting published. Our next iteration will be on November 15th about how to write a literature review. And after that, December 6th, we will have a webinar about creating a research agenda and developing your personal brand. So please do be on the lookout for those. In addition, next month on November 8th, we'll be running a similar webinar to this, another How to Be a Peer Reviewer webinar. So if you were inspired today, please feel free to join that as well. I'll be following up with everybody who attended today with slides, the certificate of attendance, and the recording. So please do be on the lookout for that later this week. Again, a huge thank you to everybody who joined us today and for everyone who presented. And we hope to see you at a future webinar. So thank you and take care.
Thanks
Thank
everyone.
you.